This is Booney, one name, and you are watching the Break It Down Show.
I realized that my camera is not doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm like, why does my shot look so weird? So we're starting this thing off with a little bit of technology and trying to get things going. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's cool what you're doing. It's I noticed that you haven't always run this show. Someone else has run it in the past. How did you come across getting it?
So I actually, when I've been in the real estate world, in the lending world, in the banking world for my whole career, 25 years, I never intended to be in that world. I actually started coaching basketball in the late 90s. I worked for a man by the name of Jerry Tarkanian in the late 90s at Fresno State, and I originally wanted to get into coaching. Well, the late 90s, when I got done with school, it was either time to continue that path or get into the world of corporate and that sort of thing. And at that time, .com was kind of going nuts. Technology was going crazy. And I decided to go that route. So the plan was, hey, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to get back into coaching, get back into sports after a couple of years. Well, 1 year turned into 5 turned into 10 turned into 25.
Oops.
Yeah, right. So, looking back, it's probably one of the decisions I do regret, and always had a love for sports. And when you try to switch careers later on, a lot of things change and you get a little bit naive about it. I knew the A's didn't have a host for a time, and I contacted Locked On A's. I'm like, hey, love to do it. And they contacted me at the beginning of the season of 2024. And I never heard back from them again. And they had Sully, who ended up doing 2 shows, who does a good job. He ended up doing it. And then they contacted me at the end of the season and asked if I wanted to do it. I'm like, yeah, sure. So that's how I got into it.
Not an easy gig, in case you didn't know.
No, it's not. It's the plan was just to talk baseball, right? And just to kind of have fun with it. I didn't realize everything else that went in with it, and more. I didn't realize how political the Oakland A's have gotten. I mean, and how intense it was with regard to the move and so forth. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know.
Yeah, let's get into that in a minute, because there's other stuff to discuss here real quick. So when you get into these, we'll call this the newest new media, right? We've seen that podcasting change the last election. And I tried, before the 2020 election, I tried to be like, hey, this is a place where politicians can come on and talk. And all of their consultants were like, absolutely not. No way are you going to talk uncontrolled on everything. And now, we just saw President Trump, sit with Joe Rogan, and a lot of people, more people than watched the Super Bowl watched that episode, right? And people are starting to get what it is. And I'm saying this not to set a political foundation here, but to say this stuff works and people get it. And you're able to talk with me. We're not worried about a 7-minute cut. I'm not trying to get you. You're not trying to get me. We can disagree. We can work through that disagreement, all these things. And I think right now, more than ever, that's what the A's moving. You haven't, look, we have people from the Oakland market that are interested in the A's still. I'm someone, you're someone, there's a lot more of us. There's a lot of people that are going to be in Sacramento that have been dying for a team. They're going to be interested in what you're doing. And now you have the ability to build an audience before they even get there in Las Vegas. I think that's almost a miracle to have that. What is the relationship that the A's have had with you thus far, if anything?
As far as the baseball team or the fans, or
how about the team, the organization? Do they acknowledge your existence?
No, they don't know I'm exist. I mean, right now, I think other Locked On shows with a bigger following definitely has that. Right now, even when you're talking about networks that are covering the A's, don't have much of a following, right? Because for the matter of fact, I mean, the A's don't have a whole lot of a fan base right now. You have Oakland that wants nothing to do with them. You have Sacramento, which they're going to park. And that's what kind of bothered me a little bit about them not ever adopting the name Sacramento. And then you have Vegas, which is still 3 years out. So they don't have a fan base whatsoever. I think the A's organization right now, and as far as a corporation, are still trying to identify that themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to look ahead and try to decide how this should go, but I don't think anyone can, whether they have control over something or not. It's very difficult to see what the future for the A's is. Let's go back a little bit though. Jerry Tarkanian, one of my favorite coaches from the Oakland days. Yeah. What's your impression of that dude?
He was great. I like Coach Tark a lot. I mean, he called it how it is. He was a fair guy. He was a great communicator. He had great charisma. He was awesome. I like Coach Tark a lot. I mean, I spent 2 years with him there. His second and third years at Fresno State, and it was a wild time there as well. He brings a lot of attention no matter where he goes. We had 60 Minutes do an episode on us. There was an FBI investigation for point shaving. I was actually called to testify in front of the grand jury for a point shaving investigation that happened. So it was interesting, actually. When I got done with school, I was a grad assistant, and when I got done, decided to come back. I was staying with my folks' house in the peninsula, and a black car pulls up, and they're looking, they have a subpoena, and it was sent to my dad because he was the name of record. He's like, "What's this? It's not me." And it ended up being towards for me, and but that whole thing was interesting as well. The 2 years there, but I like Coach Tark. He was awesome. It was a wild time there, and they were definitely out to get him. That's for sure.
Did he deserve that? Being out to get like that kind of attention? It's, was there smoke and fire? I don't know. You tell me. What's your opinion? I'm not asking you.
The idea and the thought was his theory was giving kids a second chance that no one else would. Now there was 2 reasons for that. Okay, let's not make him out to be a saint, right? The first reason was, yes, kids deserve a second chance, but with that being said, these kids can also play. I mean, we're talking about national level talent that are on their second, third chances that have gotten expelled from other schools for fighting, for cheating, for drugs, whatever it may be. So there was two parts to that. And it depends on what side of the fence you fall on with regard to that. Did a lot of that backfire on him? Yeah, absolutely. It did. The kids continued to be how they were, and the community came down hard on them for it. Whether it would be violence in the community, whether it would be drugs, whether it would be what they felt that these players were getting away with that normal students were not. It was based on all the perception. But at the same time, there's another story as well of the kids that did make it thanks to Coach Tark. So it really depends on what side of the fence you stand on as well. People, when they're looking at Coach Tark in those situations, there's a lot of hypocrisy as well. They don't look enough at the mirror and say, "Hey, shoot, it's easy to point. It's easy to point. It's easy to point."
I had John Mosley. Actually, I've had Johnny Mosley on my show too, but I had John Mosley, the coach out down here in Southern California, who runs the junior college. I think it's East LA Community College.
Yes.
Last state championship, great thing. Last Chance U, right?
Yeah.
And why I wanted him on, one, because great show, great guest, great, just very motivational. But his job coaching has more coaching in it than, say, kids that have gone to camps every year and have had the opportunity to mature into a basketball player. He's doing a Tarkanian-like thing, right? And matter of fact, I would imagine if Tark was around today, he'd be looking at East LA Community College and go, "Give me some of these guys," because he would know how to handle them.
Well, Coach Tark was a JUCO guy before he ever went to Vegas or Long Beach State. He went to, I believe, Long Beach City College in the 60s. He was. His son, George, coached at Chafee, I want to say. So, it's very, very similar. And JUCO's different. If people that were involved in JUCO I was for a number of years, understand that. A lot of people don't, but there's, and especially in California, I mean, the number of junior colleges in California are more than the rest of the country combined.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a great pathway. By the way, anybody watching, if your kid's lost or if you feel lost, go to junior college. They'll walk you right into Cal Berkeley. Just like,
No
what classes
question.
do I got to take to get to Cal? And then you take those classes and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, I'm a Cal Bear.
Yeah. It took me 4 years to get out of JUCO.
Yeah,
So,
look, like all of it, like when I beat hard on the left, that is golden, you know, and basically you don't have to pay for community college like that.
No.
What a chance to erupt. And this goes right into your Tarkanian thing, right? It's like these kids that struggled because of abuse, neglect, bad parents, where they lived, all these things. Don't care about that. What I care about is this guy's gotten through JUCO, or, you know, he's ready to take this shot and come in and be a 26-year-old freshman or whatever.
Yeah.
And has been shot, you know, like all of these
Sure.
things. Don't care. And so I used to live in Vegas, and you'd run across these guys. I never found anyone, much like Coach Knight, I never found any of the former players that ever had anything other than to say, oh my God, that man changed my life.
Right.
And whatever it was, because he wasn't just, if you wanted to stay in Vegas, like go do your professional dream. But if you wanted to come back and stay in Vegas, you were going to get a job. You had to perform, you had to do all of that, right? But he was also connected in the community in a way that helped these kids have a real shot. And sometimes, look, and you know this, Booney, you're going to tell me about it anyhow, but sometimes that's hard, ugly work. These guys are not just going to go reliably in one direction. And you saw that in Last Chance U. It's like, hey, and I loved it when Coach Mosley said, I love you. It's not going to change. I love you. You think I'm mad at you? I'm showing you the path, man.
Yeah.
I want you to succeed more than you do. You know, and when they started to get that, whoo, look out.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. And unfortunately, you know, part of the problem we have societal right now is that's changed with the money that the kids are getting. They have the power now. It's easy for them to go to a certain school and not like it and have someone else promise them X, Y, or Z or whatever it may be, and they're going. And what's being missed there is the adversity of not starting, the adversity of going through difficult times. I mean, you're not moving schools. You're just taking your problems with you. You know, it's going to follow you. It's going to go where you're at. And what we're going through now today with the A's and what we're seeing, it's cultural. It's societal. It's not necessarily baseball itself. I mean, I think I've talked more about what's going on societal than actual baseball since I've done it. And that's something that I don't necessarily like at all, but it's out there, and so yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but you're right. Guys like Coach Mosley, they're dinosaurs now, and what they're doing.
Yeah, and yet they're not, right? Like it might look like a different thing. You know, there's all kinds of coaches out there, but if you can, and I'll just say men, if you can lead men, and you get what they are, even if they're rough around the edges, even if they need, you know, sometimes, I'm not saying you want to ever abuse anybody, but sometimes you got to put your hands on a dude and reset them and go, hey, boom, 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 wake up in there, you know? And because like, even like in Little League, you know, you get the kids, the boys, their minds just drift off, and you need to like grab that face mask, even if it's in baseball, and go, hey, are you in there? I need you to pay attention, you know, and because they don't. This is part of the thing about dudes, like we're just so programmed to go in one direction. Sometimes you got to shake them out of that and then turn loose that tiger when it's a little bit more attentive in the right direction.
Yeah, I coached last year to Division II in San Francisco. I wanted to get back into that profession, and it was it's the same thing that you're talking about, man. I mean, it was those kids are rough around the edges because the school in San Francisco, although they had money, they didn't have what other schools had, such as a campus. And so they were getting what was left over, who other schools did not want, not because of talent, just because of everything else that came along with it, whether it be grades or attitude or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Thanks for going through that with me, man. I didn't know you would work with Coach Tark, and you know, a lot of people give that guy a very negative reputation. And I think ultimately, yes, championships matter, and having a great program. But from the community perspective, you're taking people struggling to survive in civilization and you're flipping them into people that can go into the corporate world and work professionally, contribute to society. And he did that. If you said, hey, you have to go find dudes that likely will be dead before they're 30, and I want you to coach them up and turn them into good citizens. Holy shit. No, thanks.
Yeah.
That's a hard job. That's got a
Yeah.
lot of pain in it, you know, and you are going to skirt, like you're going to find people that are, I like to call them extra legal. They're not illegal, but they don't know how to get within the bounds because the bounds don't work for them. You have to go work with those dudes and take and reclaim these people. Good luck, Coach Tark. See you later.
Sure. No, you're 100% right. And you know, he did it right. He did it right. Now, you know, along the years, I've been real lucky to be around some real great coaches. I mean, from the JUCO level to the Division I level, you know, and even some of the guys that I work with back then are at the NBA level right now. I mean, I worked with closely. I was at Pepperdine as well for a brief period of time and worked real closely with Randy Bennett, who was at St. Mary's. He's been at St. Mary's for 21 years. He was the assistant at Pepperdine at the time. Lorenzo Romar was there, and they're great people. Just wonderful, just good people.
Yeah, there's a thing where you often self-select into coaching because there's something that you want to get out of it. Some people are tacticians, some people are, you know, operations guys, planners, right? And there's those motivators, right?
Leaders, yeah.
I mean, I can't think of a better example of this than Tommy Lasorda, you know, and like the story before Gibson hits the home run is so wonderful because I don't know how much you know this. We'll just spend a minute on this. Yeah. Vin Scully looks into the dugout and he's like, well, I don't see, and he knows. I don't see Gibson in the dugout. I guess we're not going to see him tonight. And Gibson, like the goddamn Undertaker, get my bat.
Yeah.
And so Scully calls him out. It's better. And then Lasorda hears him back there banging away. He knows what's going on. And so he walks back and, you know, and he's like, can you go? And Gibson goes, yes. And before he can do anything else, Lasorda's already gone. The decision's already made. I mean, I don't know who could pull that off today. You know, and we saw a similar home run with Freddie Freeman, who's on this broken leg that needed an operation. But the Kirk Gibson doesn't really play baseball. That's the last moment he leads a team for damn sure in his career. After that, he was not that player anymore ever again. And he didn't really play much the next 2 years at all. Like he got hurt and couldn't stay in the field. But Lasorda took that Olympic team and said, follow me, I'll show you how to do this. And they won a gold medal and nobody expected it. There are those coaches, but it's a little tougher to find them. Maybe, I don't know.
Everyone forgets about Gibson too. Remember 84 as well. I mean, no one talks about Gibson enough as far as one of the great clutch performers and one of the great competitors in baseball. He led that 84 team as well. And when you hear about Sparky Anderson, Lasorda speak about their favorite players, it's always Gibson's at the top of that list.
God, that guy was a winner, man.
He was a beast.
Depending on which broadcast you watched in 88, it was like, you know, 2 of the last 5 at-bats for Gibson were home runs. Flashes on the screen, and he's walking up at 88, you know? Yeah, because he was a monster. I've got this great article that I'm writing right now, and it takes time to do these things. I try to be a little more deliberate. But there's so much richness in his career. And you take a dude like that. I mean, from my point of view, when he won the MVP in 88, he won it in spring training. He's like, God damn it. Now they don't tell the whole story in the press, but he didn't just leave the stadium. He smashed some shit and was like, this is the goddamn standard, and the standard is fucking winning. Not here to, you know, and those Dodgers all went, okay. And that team should never have won shit. Oh, awful. Mickey Hatcher, man. I love Mickey Hatcher, but come on.
Oh, I was heartbroken at that game. Jeez, but looking back, what a team. I mean, what a team. What a team. I mean, and what a story. I mean, from Hershiser to Gibson to what they went through. I mean, they had to beat the Mets, I believe, in the to win the pennant as well.
They were like 11-1 against them that year, you know, and then they beat them in 7. Yeah.
They were unbelievable. Unbelievable.
truly. And that's to Lasorda's credit. He knew how to get that out of them, and that kind of coaching will still work. It's just
Yeah.
like pitching. You don't have to throw 104 miles an hour and destroy
No.
your arm to get people
Mm-mm.
out. But
Yeah,
right
no
now, that's
question.
in vogue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
When you look at the A's in the history, and you've done a great job. Everybody go check out Locked On A's. I'll put the link up here. Go just you can on Twitter or wherever you want to go, you can find Locked On A's. And I hope that says Locked On A's. I'm getting my eyes off
Yeah. Yeah. You got it.
today.
Yeah.
You did this great. I think it's a 3-part thing, and you
Correct.
dove into what's going on. And look, I'm going to be critical of all of these Bay Area media types that can't wrap their heads around taking themselves out of the equation. And you and I both know the Bay Area leans hard to the left. When I come into town and I watch the news, I'm like, whoa, this is partisan, and I'm not a right guy. I'm just in the middle. But when I'm like seeing these long, drawn out, emotional stories about, I'm like, what are you guys doing? Right.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to name names, but we know the guys who are out there and they have a narrative, and it's poisoned a lot of A's fans. All adult baseball teams are struggles. It's not easy being a fan, but when you have your media giving you less than all of the story, look out.
Correct. And that's what bothered me. I mean, when you take our the level of divide in this country and what's going on political, it's easy to get both sides, right? No matter how skewed one side is or the other, you can always get somebody else's perspective. In sports, you trust that it's not at that level, right? And who has the time to really research it and dig in? You listen to it for entertainment and you get your information, you trust it.
Yeah.
And when things were being left out, it's like, come on, guy. I trusted exactly what you were saying. Now, I'm not saying somebody shouldn't disagree or agree. I mean, hang Fisher to the cross if you want, but at least have the full story. And when you're telling this story, the attendance is part of the story. The truth about how the Reggie Jackson group really didn't have an opportunity to buy the A's. The truth that Selig and Wolf actually butted heads. They weren't in a so-called conspiracy. And listen, I was victim to all that because the first half of my episodes were supporting that narrative. It's like, it's wrong. None of that was true. Part of it was true. And so that's what kind of really bugged me about it. And for this to be turned into so politicized is a little bit of a bother, because at the same time, let's keep things in a perspective. And as well as I do, considering your history and what you've been through, this is baseball at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah.
This is still baseball. People have a lot more problems in life than what is baseball. And the story being told about the A's as a team that's been stolen from the community, but they fail to realize and tell the story that when Howard Terminal was going up and a vote was on it, it was the priority of about 8th or 9th of the people of Oakland, because they were concerned about making rent payments. They were concerned about jobs. They were concerned about crime. And those are the things that are being, overshadowed. So, like I said, you could, whatever opinion you may have, good for you. I'm with it. But just be sure you're telling the full story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot in that, because one of the things is this is just a fact. It stings, but it's a fact. Half of the fan bases are below average. And
yes,
sometimes you can graduate up, sometimes you lower down, and expectations are met and not met and all that kind of thing. But and I know, like, you're clear, like, you do not blame the fans. I do. I mean, it's like at some point we got to show up when they win. And there's always a little bit of a lag. But if Minnesota, significantly smaller market than the Bay Area, however you want to chop that up, if they can twice draw 3 million fans and the A's can't once with all that winning, Yeah, there's a problem with that fan base. Now, is that problem because they suck or they're soft? Look, when I'm talking on Extra, I'll call people soft when I think they're soft, right? But how many thousands of people are on a boat in a harbor to be on a boat or whatever, and not in a stadium? Like a ton of them, thousands of people all around the Bay Area. They're in the ocean, they're in the bay, they're in the rivers, they're in the Delta. We got a lot of water and a lot of fun out there. And if you're like, hey, you want to go to an A's game, you want to go water ski? I'm gonna go water ski, a lot, right? So it's just wonderful to live there, and there's a lot of options. And when you pick other stuff, not enough people. I'm not saying they were bad A's fans, right? There's all the people that bought season tickets. I never was a season ticket holder.
Me either.
Within
the Warriors, I was, but yeah, not for the A's.
Within the money that I had available to me, and I never had a lot of money. I did go to a good number of A's games, and I listened all the time. So I'm on the radio, I'm watching on TV, sometimes TV, radio, same time. So I'm doing what I can, but that's not enough, And so when I would come back from being abroad, and I'm like, I want to catch an A's game, right? That's how much of a fan I was. Like, I'm going to spend some of my precious time home to see an A's game, and I'd be there, and I'm like, where is everybody? Right. I remember those days when it'd be 35, 42, 45,000 on fireworks night. That's a big yard, right? There's a lot of people in it. And I'd get there and there'd be 12,000 people for a really good team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy. And like I said, I have never put fully the blame on the fans. I feel there's a lot more that goes into it. I just feel that if you're going to set the narrative that we have such an incredible fan base, and then fans are coming back right now as far as their defense to the attendance, saying, well, if you spent money on the team, the fans would show up. If you had a new ballpark, the fans would show up because of the product on the field. Well, you can't say anything about the winning. They have won. So if your argument is that the only way the fans will show up in the 4 years of their existence, they have, is if you spend top 5 in payroll in all of baseball, you're in contention for a world championship, and and that's the only way that the fans are going to show up. I hate to say it. Yeah. That's not a good fan base. That's
not a good fan base.
You know what I mean? They could care less that Walter Haas lost money. Here's the problem, Pete. This really comes down to socially, our society has hated corporate individuals with money. Right. That's what it really comes down to. Would we have the same reaction if Walter Haas right now had the team, or somebody struggling as far as financials? No. We have a perfect villain right there, who's a billionaire owner who hasn't worked for his money, who's supposedly hasn't worked, generally speaking, who's inherited his wealth from his parents, and that hasn't been outspoken or public, that hasn't shared his finances, that's taking a team and is moving it. We hate billionaires and we hate people with money, especially here in California. And again, I don't want to make this political, but that's just a fact. Some people will say, why hasn't he disclosed how he's paying for the stadium? I say, hey, you open up your wallet, you tell me how you're paying your bills next month. Yeah, it's not your business. And they hate Peter Manfred, but they failed to, they hate Commissioner Manfred, Rob Manfred, but they hate, they failed to say that he supported the A's from 2016 to 2020. Where I do blame the fans is the sell the campaign, and the reverse boycott type of deal. Any shot of an expansion team, any shot of the A's staying in Oakland was done with that. If you ran your own company, if you ran your own, if you had money coming in and people are cussing and swearing at you and saying all sorts of things, the Oakland A's is not a community reach program. That's how it's looked at. It is a private organization that is trying to make a profit.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, they only look at one side of the deal. And the hypocrisy, like I mentioned earlier, if any individual had a chance to be in one location or another, if it meant more to your wallet, they would do it. But
Right.
the narrative is he's a billionaire. He has plenty. He can afford to lose it.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I don't agree with.
And this is where I get hard on the fan. And it's not all fans, just the angry fans, right? The people that are like, hey, they're leaving. Go check them out in Vegas. And when I say I've got friends,
Yeah,
I lived in the Bay Area a lot of my life. I'm from the Bay Area. When I write on X or whatever, hey, a bunch of my friends, yeah, we're gonna go to the stadium when it's built. We're gonna go to Sacramento. No A's fan would ever do it. I'm just telling you that they are. I just told you they are. I'm going to go.
yeah,
I've got buddies right now. Like let's pick a couple days and go to games in Sac, right?
yeah.
They want to do that, and so there's a limited group of people that had a very loud voice, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them for being upset and everything else. And you've heard me say this: they'd rather root against and hate an owner than root for a good team, a team that will reliably rebuild itself. What a remarkable! If you could reliably do that in a lot of other markets, they'd have better fan support. Frankly, they would. I wanted to read a little quote here. This is from SF Gate magazine back in 1995. And when we think so the fans often will lose sight of what the history is. And they'll tell me I don't know the history, but I'm like, well, I've been around. I've read all this stuff. I care about it. And when they say something, I look it up and I try to make it up. But we didn't support the Haas family. And there's this belief oh, the vaunted Haas era was great. Half, by some counts, or more than half of the seasons, depending on when you want to give credit to the Haas family for owning and controlling the team.
Sure.
The A's fans don't show up. And where they ranked 11th out of 12 or, towards the bottom, right? Not even in the bottom third and the lower part of the bottom third quite often. So when they have to sell, the quote from Walter J. Haas, our family has made substantial sacrifices beyond the original sale price to conclude the deal. I'm not going to get into specifics, but we made concessions from the original terms that are several $1 million less. So already sold the thing as a distressed asset and then still had to come off of money because guess what? The A's weren't worth that much.
Right.
And so when you sell that to developers who are going to try to, develop and make this market better, that's because everybody who's bought the team except for Fisher, they've made their money on building things. And when these guys sell the team frustrated that they couldn't get something done, it is not just an owner problem. Now, the owners bear the responsibility to their business. They've got to establish connection with the community. But it's also a fact that you and I could probably independently each name 12 different efforts to change the A's location.
Yeah.
And I'll just use Sacramento. Again, people will say, you don't know anything about the history. I'll talk to you right now about Joe Cerna and Greg Lukenbill in Sacramento in the 80s going, hey, we want to get you out here because we want you here and the community wants us, So we could talk about that all day long, but that's a reality. They were a distressed asset. And when you're trying to work a distressed asset and get a new stadium built, as all of your peers are doing this, that is expensive. And you don't run a high budget when you're trying to sort these things out. Should you invest in players? Yes. And then they invest in McGuire and it goes south on them, almost immediately. So there's a lot in there that we have to understand. I can't spend someone else's money and I can't predict what they should do or shouldn't do, but it's not as cut and dried as everybody wanted it to be.
No. Here's what's ironic about it. The city of Oakland's always been known as an underdog type of town. Everybody that's not given it a chance, everyone who's thought of it as a second thought. Yet they have a baseball team that is designed as that, but they don't want it designed as that. They want your high-priced free agents. They want everything about that team that is everything that is not Oakland. Right. And that's what's so ironic, because that's why I fell in love with Oakland. I started liking the A's, yes, based on your Cansecos and your McGuires and your high price for agents. And yes, when Schott bought the team and he sold it off, I was pissed. I remember that as a kid. But then when the Moneyball years came and we start winning these games with the guys we have, with the big three, with people we develop in our farm system from the draft and taking these teams to the limit, I thought that was the most special thing. And I continue that now. From 2021 to 2024, has it been a joke? Yeah. But last year's team was extremely exciting. I mean, forget about just July. July and August, they had the fourth best record, I think, in all of baseball. I mean, they were so fun to watch. But, unfortunately, everything was just, I don't know. It's so darn disappointing, man. And what's even more disappointing is it's not social media trolls that are doing this. It's groups that are representing the A's as the fans and shooting this out. So, it's unfortunate.
It is, and it costs all of us. Like, we can't interact properly with the A's because, for a good reason, they don't want to have their comments on, and this makes it harder for them to connect with the community. But look at the community, how they behave, and so when all these clearly angry A's fans go, why aren't your comments up? Because you're an asshole. Because you want to come to a party and you want to poop in the punch and act like that's the cool thing to do. Like, no, look, we're trying to enjoy the team. I wish they would have stayed in Oakland. I wish they would have built a ballpark in 92. And there's a couple of the big things with that. So one is when in 90, when the A's went to the World Series, that was the end of the early dominance of the Royals. They were done at that point, and they weren't good reliably. Now, they had a little, like a second place finish, and I think it's 94, but they were way back, and it was like a fluke thing. But all the rest of from 90 to 2013, right, like their last year in that just desert of lack of winning, they usually finished fourth or worse, right? So during that time, the A's won a lot. They went to a World Series. They went to a bunch of playoffs. They went to ALCSs. They did well. I mean, for a team during those years, and we're talking 90 to 2013.
23. Yeah.
The A's, on average, outdrew the Royals, who did nothing, who were admittedly by then poorly managed, outdrew them by 2,000 fans a game.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, by the way, like during that time when they built Skydome in 89, and they played during that time, and Skydome had a similar capacity to the A's, they outdrew the A's in those first 5 years by like it's like 2 seasons worth of 3 million, like 6,000 or 4 million or 6 million people in just a few years, right?
Yeah.
And so like there is a difference, and the league was moving. You had Camden Yards, you had the new White Sox Stadium. Granted, that one didn't work out as well. Skydome comes out, and then the Rangers, and then meanwhile, all these other teams have this advantage of a new yard, the excitement that comes with that, the All-Star game, all these things, and the A's got none of it, because they had bad business partners around them. You know, and you talked about this in one of your breakdowns, but all of the money that was in the Silicon Valley started funneling towards the Giants. And could not get it into the A's hands. And that also goes to a mortal blow that Wally Haas had put on the A's when he said, let's keep the Giants here. He was the good guy.
He was,
It cost him. That was a lot of me talking. You should talk for a little bit.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. And what you say as far as the A's anger and that sort of thing and that's why I blame the media. Because I was that guy that was angry. Not to that level. I still wanted to support the A's, but I supported the narrative of it's all Fisher's fault. The city did everything they could. I supported all of that because I listened to your media, your podcast that had the viewers that were on the local news. And they chose what to tell us. Now, do you notice when that was going on, they were hand in hand with Mayor Sheng Tao? Now they don't even speak her name. Was that part of it? I don't know. But I will tell you this, it's part of the story. And I will tell you this, I guarantee you, Major League Baseball knew. Now, being in that real estate and that lending world for as long as I was, I knew those people that Sheng Tao was dealing with over in these. I didn't know them, but you hear rumors of it when you're in that world. Did I know anything was true or they were involved in this or that? No, absolutely not. But if somebody like me knows and hears rumors like that,
Yeah.
you don't think MLB has somebody on the ground that knows a lot more?
Yeah.
So, and I think that had a lot to do with the disrespect Rob Manfred had towards Mayor Tao. And at the same time, the negotiations Mayor Tao was trying to do with the A's in the Coliseum, if they wanted to get the deal done, they could have. You had one great point, and I still use your line when you came on, and you worded it perfectly. Everybody can have their day in court if they choose, and there's something beautiful about that. And you could say what you want, and someone can choose, and you could have your opinion. Everyone in California, wherever it may be, can have their day in court. And there's a beautiful thing about that. But the flip side of that coin, it takes time.
Everybody gets their day in court.
It takes time. And like I said, the A's in Major League Baseball is not an outreach program. They're going to go to where it's easiest and where it is going to potentially fill their pockets. And let's get one thing straight about Rob Manfred. Everyone could blame him or not. He's basically echoing what the owners tell him to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he works for them, right? They're all trying to get their business to go forward in a positive way. And that is a very tough thing because he has these kind of, I'll call them moribund markets, Casey needs to figure something out if they want to stay relevant. They're already so far behind because of the market size. And so it can't just be, let's take more money from the Yankees and Dodgers and spread it around because there's not enough of that money to make it work. Yeah. And Casey's ballpark, it's a joy. It's lovely, but it's nowhere near downtown. And
I've been there
in terms, and I love it. I wish they could make it work there, but they can't. And so you have to have other revenue streams. Otherwise, they'll become a minor league city, and that's not what Manfred needs. He needs that, hey, we got to figure this out. And here's the things, and you mentioned this in your thing, to give you credit again. The Giants stadium, one, was a miracle that it happened. The right lobbyist at the right time got these measures through. I went back and I did like an audit, whatever, not really, but I just looked through like all the different measures that have been brought through Alameda County, right? And it's all stuff that they need, like more money for ambulance support, schools, all this. So they weren't being frivolous with their money, but there's a lot of measures asking for a lot of taxes over the last 30 years. And you start to realize, man, if you wanted, you're going to be like, wait, you're already asking us for everything. We don't want to build another ball yard. And so when Stadium City, and here's where I'll be a little critical of you, I wish you would have gone a little bit more into that, because when Oakland presented Stadium City, ain't nobody showed up.
Yeah.
And when that happens and you're relying on everybody else on the private sector, and you did talk about this and said, hey, help us figure this out. I can't get investors for you if you can't get any local people to show up at your own damn meeting. And so all of these things were not going to work. You and I know a lot of people around the Bay Area. I know people that work in and around the docks for a variety of reasons. And they have all said zero chance that Howard Terminal is a viable site. Looks beautiful. I wish it was possible, but I do this work all the time. And this is not me talking. This is the guy talking. Yeah. And it's dirty. It's dirty work. And someone's always in my business trying to stop my business because of all of the various competing interests. California Coastal Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, Sierra Club, I'm just naming obvious things, right? Yeah. And so as soon as you try to put anything there, it's going to double in price. We can't build a train from fucking Fresno to Bakersfield, Yeah. So you're telling me you're going to build a stadium on the water on a dock? No, the Warriors couldn't do it. They had to move to another part of the city, right? Yeah. And so it was always going to be a long odds proposition. And then all the little things that get in the way. There was never a real chance. So when the Giants stadium was finally approved and they won that last vote, the closing line of one of the articles I read in the Chronicle from that era, this is, the mid-late 90s, was a guy saying, we're going to come sue him. It's like, and I don't know how many times I stopped reading about it after that, but I'm positive that there were other attempts to get lawsuits through, and maybe they won those, maybe they didn't come to fruition, but people, just to stop it from happening, were going to sue the Giants, the city, whatever it was, to make it not happen. And so I just don't think it was possible to build 2 yards in that part of the world.
No, the only place the A's would have had an opportunity to move to and was San Jose, was the South.
Yeah,
that was very, very viable. I think that would have happened for sure. I mean, we saw it years later after they first looked with Levi's. You know, obviously where the Niners are right now, but that was the only place it was going to become viable. Everywhere else, it's just hard.
Yeah,
it was just
and it went to the Supreme Court, so it wasn't viable. You know, they lost, and how much did that cost?
Right, because of
the
whatchamacallit, of the Giants, right, territorial rights, right?
Yeah. And so you think about however many hundreds of millions of dollars that costs to do all of that prospecting and searching and prepping and all these things and have it to not work out. That cost money, and it's unfortunate again that it happened. But this isn't just. And by the way, John Fisher didn't run the A's early on. Yes, he was an owner. Thankfully, he bought them. Well, they might have left before then, and we lose sight of that. Another thing that A's fans say is that the A's, before the Giants got their new yard, that the A's outdrew the Giants. That's just not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. If you break it down year by year, there's essentially no difference. It's like of the 31 years or whatever that number is, they're like 14, 14, and 2. Where there's essentially no difference. If you want to lean on those numbers, okay, they slightly favor the A's, but you're talking thousands of people, right? Not even like a stadium full of people.
Yeah.
And over 30, that's nothing. That's a rounding. It's not even a rounding error. You ignore it. You don't even round to the 4th decimal point. You just like whatever, man. That's the same. That's reality. But they hate, the angry A's fans hate that when you bring it up.
There needs to be objectivity in this whole thing. There just needs to be some sort of objectivity. I'm not telling you to think one way or think another, but the thought that the A's didn't try to stay is false. The A's, the thought that Reggie Jackson's group they could have easily sold is false. There's so many things that are just flagrantly false. It's just it's not even close. And like I say, every time I talk about it, I get a little upset about it. It's just because I was fooled. If you watch first 10 episodes, I completely bash Fisher and take the narrative they did because I listened. Like, hold on a second. Then I go, this is the only issue. I've never seen an issue where there isn't two sides. This is the only where we're only getting told one story. And I started to dig a little bit just based on the attendance. And, it's just, I didn't realize I knew it wasn't good. I didn't realize it was that bad. I didn't realize they were in the top 10 6 times out of 56 years. If it was even that many, and it's just, it's really bad. I mean, I think you came up with the statistic. It's the most successful franchise ever not to draw 3 million fans. Yeah.
And so we beat the shit out of this. The A's are moving. They're going to be in Vegas, and let's talk a little bit about where they're going and just baseball in general. It's spring training. What's got you excited outside of the A's?
As far as spring training, or as far as their baseball team.
Okay, but either one. You tell me. What do you want to go? Because they're both good questions.
I think, and I've said it before. I think they're going to win the AL West. And the reason I say that, people think I'm nuts, but they don't really base that on anything. When you have a team that played the way they did in July and August, you have a young team. And what do we know about young players? Young players get better. Okay, if they stay on that path as far as getting better, they're maturing. Guys like Lawrence Butler, guys like Tyler Soderstrom. I love who they signed. They have great chemistry. When you look at the 72 to 74 teams, you know what they made them so special? They all came up together. Yeah. They all were together during that time. There's something to be said about chemistry. You talked earlier about the Dodger teams and Gibson. Chemistry off the charts. That's what this A's team has. The stadium is going to be sold out. I mean, obviously, at 10,000 fans. Sacramento has a great group of fans, etc. The A's play an exciting brand of baseball. I'm really, really excited about the A's more than probably any other year I've followed them. This could be a really, really special year because of what they're overcoming. And the players, when you look at them one by one, are good guys. And they're guys that a lot of teams gave up on, from their free agents in Severino to Springs and to everybody coming back. They're all guys that someone gave up on. The prospects they have going on. It's an exciting time. Vegas has a right to be very, very excited with the A's landing in 2028. Obviously, they still need to get that secured, but who knows? Pete, it may not happen, but there's no evidence to dictate that, right? It's just purely speculation. If it does not happen, but I can't imagine it not happening. And there's another thing as well. We hear a lot of how Fisher's going to pay for it. That he has to liquidate X, and that's just another false story. It drives me crazy. I'm like, I'll get a lot of criticism on that. And I'm like, guys, listen, don't take my word for it. Do a Google search on what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you anything that's, mind blowing or I'm giving you some sort of false information, but it's an exciting time for the A's. I'm excited for their team. And we talked a little bit at the beginning about teams and coaches and concepts and leadership and togetherness. And to me, that's what this A's team has. They have everyone fighting against what theirs. Then you have 26 guys in that clubhouse that are together with a leader. And at the end of the day, it's about baseball. And so for anything to be taken off that attention is, and I said it in one thing, and I got a lot of criticism for it, was I'm glad the A's are out of Oakland.
Me too.
Just because of that negative energy, because they did have a special team last year.
And I don't want to beat on Oakland anymore, but I'm going to do it one more time real quick. And here's how you get Oakland to Las Vegas, right? You just go, hey, here comes a package show with Too Short, Hammer, Sheila E., Tower of Power, and all these different people. And that's it. You just build it so that Oakland wants to come. I don't know, once a year or whatever. Who cares, right? But there's a lot of people that would come and will come. It's Vegas. And so, I'm excited about the team too. And I look at this team and I'm drawing a parallel. It's not meant to be exact, but when I saw last year's team, this is before the season started, I'm like, gosh, there's a lot of young talent here. And if half of it plays out, they're going to be in good shape. Back in the old days, we had prospects that came up in 85. I was like, oh man, this is exciting. We had Jose Canseco win Rookie of the Year, or when he was coming up, 86, he won Rookie of the Year. Yeah, and these guys were coming, and you could see it. The Coliseum was empty, but you could see that excitement coming. And who knew that Dave Stewart was going to work out? And so there'll be guys like that where
Dave Stewart's a perfect example. Yeah.
Right. Eckersley has a career revival doing something else. And the A's are good at this sort of thing. They know how to take someone else's waste and say, hey, we can fix this guy. We can train him up. They, in a lot of ways, they're like a light version of the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers compete hard in a lot of areas that are off the field, and that takes a lot of money. And that's where I'm critical of where Fisher needs to grow. He needs to get guys that can sell season tickets. If you can't sell box seats to corporations in the Midwest coming up in April, May, and just sell the shit out of packages, then you need to get better salespeople, because you're talking about Vegas and conventions. They're going to have a convention space right there. You don't think they're going to get people in that yard? Of course. And so they've got to act like that. They've got to come out and continue to develop talent, continue to reclaim talent and rehabilitate talent, but also they're going to have to make some very savvy and well-timed free agent acquisitions. You don't have to do it all this year, right? You do it next year, and the championship window starts to open. But if they made the playoffs this year, you're rooting for it, and I would be mildly surprised. But I expect them to get somewhere near 500 and maybe 85 wins even, right? And if they got past that, wouldn't surprise me at all. I see Rooker, and I'm like, man, that guy is he is trying to be a leader, and you see him engaging like that, with the community. And so there's a lot of good things that point to this team's going in a good direction. They got a young guy they just invested in. He seems exciting. I hope that he continues to be the player we saw last year.
Yeah.
But even if not, that happens, and teams recover from it in their own way. So I am excited about the season.
Yeah, me too. Me as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
what else do you want to cover before we go ahead?
No, I was just, like I said, it's going to be, you talked about Dave Stewart and Eckersley early on. And, you remember those teams that the big free agents they signed were Welsh and Mike Moore. And I mean, those were later on type of guys, but you talked to when you came on the show, it's about signing the right free agents. Teoscar Hernandez was a great point you brought up, right? Yeah. When they signed Teoscar Hernandez, no one was like, whoa, he was a good, solid free agent signing who turned out to be arguably the best player on their team in certain moments. I mean, definitely in the postseason he was. But
he was huge during I would actually say he was the MVP of the season.
Yeah. No, you mentioned that. And it's that's the thing. And I often question a lot of A's fans in sports in general. It's like, what would you rather have? Would you rather win and not spend, or spend and lose? Because if you're just spending on free agents, well, those free agents are taking the spot of somebody that was not given the opportunity that could turn out to be better than. I use Jordan Montgomery a lot as an example with the Diamondbacks. He was a high-priced free agent, and the Diamondbacks were very, very close to making the playoffs. You could easily say if they did not spend that money just to spend on free agents, whoever had his spot takes them over the top.
You can say the same thing going the other direction. Like, you could spend a bunch of money on Richie Sexson, thinking he's going to give you 35 to 45 home runs indefinitely, and then just falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And he was a monster. He bashed the ball, but it was over. Yeah. And that's expensive if you're the A's.
Yeah.
And so, yes, they don't sign big people. Yes, they trade people early, but they also get a ton of value for that. Does every trade work out? No, of course not. You can't expect that. But I will tell you, here's the difference in fan markets. The Ricketts family bought the Cubs, and then they bought the entire neighborhood around there. Millions and millions of dollars of development, and they haven't been terribly competitive in recent times, right?
Yeah.
But on April 1st, or whenever they opened the doors to Wrigley, and I used to live right across the street from Wrigley. I looked out my front window, there was a brick wall right there.
Yeah.
And I was looking at right field, right? So right across the street. And that place was sold out. Nobody in it because it's too damn cold, but it was sold out. The Cubs make so much money on their tickets, they rescalp their own tickets for higher prices, Yeah. And so that is a vibrant, excited fan base around the stadium. It's like Mardi Gras when you live there. There's people all over the place. When you look at Oakland, it was just never going to happen. That bar that's connected to BART, and BART is the local train for everybody. You get off BART, you walk across this main street called International Avenue that you would never want to walk on. Cops aren't going to come help you. And then if you go down this cage stairway, there's a bar right there. Never reliably stayed open. A bar on stadium property can't stay open.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen in Cleveland.
Right.
That wouldn't happen in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's time. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about Sacramento. I love Sacramento. It's a great place to live there.
I lived there for a couple of years. Yeah. It should be fun. It should be fun.
Any final words?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Any final words before we wrap this up? Otherwise, I'm going to turn this thing off.
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, just for people out there, give the A's a follow. They're going to be an exciting brand of baseball, and I think what the A's are going to represent is obviously baseball, but I think it's going to represent a little bit about what Oakland does represent: the underdog story, and for people given that second chance. When someone's given an opportunity with a chip on their shoulder, that's hard to beat.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Everybody, this is the Break It Down show. That's Booney. He's got Locked On A's. You can check him out on YouTube, X, everything else. His handle is right below. Definitely go check him out. Even if you're not an A's fan, just go check him out just on the strength And then I'll see you all. Well, I'm going to get my operation today, so I probably will be on the air tomorrow. We will see. But I might pocket a show and put one up. Either way, I will see you guys again soon. Booney, I'll talk to you in a second. Let me hang this thing up.